At 1:24 a.m., Boston, St. Patrick's Day night, 1990. Two police officers ring a museum doorbell. 81 minutes later, 13 treasures are gone. A Vermeer, 2 Rembrandts including his only seascape, a Manet, 5 Degas drawings, an ancient Chinese beaker, a Napoleonic eagle finale. Value? Roughly $500 million. Recovery? 0. Today, the frames still hang empty, exactly where they were, like chalk outlines at a crime scene. Not as decor, as a promise. Because Isabella Stewart Gardner left strict instructions: don't move a thing. So the emptiness itself became the exhibit, an open wound, and a message to whoever took the art. We haven't forgotten. This is the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist. And this is how 2 men, dressed like cops, stole a fortune in plain sight, and then became ghosts. To understand what was stolen, you have to understand who built the stage. Isabella Stewart Gardner was a collector with a vision so specific that she turned a Boston lot into a Venetian dream. A palazzo wrapped around a lush courtyard, balconies, tapestries, and a curated gravity that pulled Europe into New England. Her will was clear. The arrangement was part of the art. Don't add, don't rearrange, don't modernize. The building itself was a manifesto against time, but time has a habit of pushing back. March 17th, rolling into March 18th, 1990. Boston is still buzzing from St. Patrick's Day. Bars have emptied. The city is drowsy and distracted. Inside the museum, 2 night guards, a small staff, a security system for the era, motion detectors in galleries, a few cameras on entrances, and a rule that's about to be ignored. Policy said, never let anyone in after hours. But at 1:24 a.m., the door buzzer sounds. 2 men in Boston police uniforms say there's a disturbance. You there? Open up. The guard at the desk breaks the rule. He buzzes them inside. What goes wrong next becomes legend. 1:24 a.m. The fake officers enter. They look official. Hats, badges, belts, radios. They tell the desk guard that he looks like someone with an outstanding warrant. It's a subtle psychological pivot. You're not the guard, you're the suspect. They have him step away from the emergency button, away from the phone, away from safety. They handcuff him. Then they call down the second guard. He arrives, and he's cuffed too. Plastic ties, duct tape. The guards are led to the basement. The thieves secure them to pipes. One guard's eyes are covered. They take their wallets and IDs, names recorded for later compliance. They warn, it'll be hours before anyone finds you. Don't move, don't scream. Now the thieves are alone with a palace of masterpieces. No crowds, no staff, no resistance. Just time, 81 minutes of it, and a shopping list. They walk straight to the Dutch room, as if they already know where to go. The room's a sanctuary of Dutch Golden Age brilliance. Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, his only seascape. A lady and gentleman in black, and a landscape once attributed to Rembrandt, now known as Govert Flink's Landscape with an Obelisk. On a nearby wall, a rare Vermeer, The Concert. What happens next is shockingly crude and effective. The thieves cut canvases out of their frames. Not careful removal, not a conservator's touch. Razor, slice, rip. The sound must have been surgical and savage at once. They roll the canvases like rugs or fold them roughly. Any restorer will tell you this is a crime on top of a crime. The art is wounded in the taking. They also try for a small Rembrandt self-portrait on a panel, but abandon it. Perhaps the wooden panel is secured too well. Perhaps it's too fragile. Perhaps they're just working off a list that prioritizes other trophies. They don't stop at paintings. They lift a Chinese bronze beaker, a ritual goo, ancient and dark as a bell's shadow, and a Napoleonic eagle finial from a military flag. These aren't the obvious headliners, but to someone who knows the market, someone thinking about portability, age, and niche buyers, they make a certain sense. Motion sensors later show the thieves in several rooms. Here's where the story grows hairline cracks. A Manet, Chez Tortoni, disappears from the blue room. But the records, according to later reporting, don't clearly place the thieves there. Did the log glitch? Was the piece removed earlier? Was it a blind spot? The uncertainty gnaws at investigators for years. They're thorough about one thing: footprints. They pull the VHS tape from the security camera that watched the entry. The galleries themselves had no cameras then. A budget decision, a philosophical stance in some museums, and a fatal blind spot on this night. They pause. They return. They move like workers doing a job they've rehearsed, not sprinting, not panicking. They check on the guards once or twice, according to reports. The tape around the guards' heads stays in place. The men speak little. One is taller, one shorter. Faces never caught clearly. 2:45 a.m. The door closes. The city exhales. On the upper floors, sliced frames bleed silence. In the basement, 2 guards count heartbeats. Above ground, a storm of consequences gathers and waits for morning. Hours pass. The shift change doesn't happen as normal. Staff arrives and can't find the guards. Calls go unanswered. Eventually, someone listens carefully. Muffled voices from below, the basement. The 2 guards are found, taped and shaken, wrists bitten red by the cuffs. Police flood the museum, and then the third gut punch lands, the frames. Where gilded portals to other centuries once hung, there's raw wall and emptiness outlined in dust. The storm on the Sea of Galilee, gone. Concert, gone. The Degas drawings, gone. The beaker, the finial, gone. There's a chilling logic to stolen art. You can't sell a Vermeer at Christie's. You don't walk into a bank with a Rembrandt for collateral. High-value masterpieces become bargaining chips. Ransom, leverage in criminal negotiations, a get-out-of-jail card to trade for sentence reductions. The more famous the piece, the more radioactive it becomes in public, and the more valuable it becomes in private shadows. The FBI opens one of the largest art crime investigations in American history. Hotlines, informants, rumors. A reward millions grows, shrinks, grows again over the years. Leads span from Boston's docks to Philadelphia's back rooms to Europe's gray markets. But the canvas of truth remains bare. A heist this clean with uniforms, a practiced script, a fast march to specific rooms, feels like insider knowledge plus organized muscle. Investigators explore several corridors of possibility. Boston's underworld in 1990 wasn't a monolith. It was a jigsaw of crews and alliances. Theories swirl that a local crew with ties to bigger syndicates pulled the job, planning to use the art as currency, trading a Vermeer for leniency, a Rembrandt for a friend's freedom, or for cash from a collector who likes his walls quiet. Over the years, names surface, some already in prison for other crimes, some dead, some adamantly denying involvement. Homes are searched, yards are dug up, storage units cracked open. A few intriguing scraps appear, lists of artworks with suspicious valuations, whispers of seeing a Rembrandt in a basement. Nothing holds in court, nothing leads to a recovery. Another theory says a known art thief, though in prison at the time, could have brokered the heist, sharing intel, pointing a crew to the Dutch room. If true, he didn't swing the razor in the galleries, but he may have handed someone the map. This version explains the targeted selection and the strange mix. Paintings, drawings, a beaker, a finial. It also fits the psychology. Arrange a spectacular theft you can later trade knowledge about. The Manet missing from the Blue Room haunts the timeline. If motion detectors didn't record the thieves in that specific gallery, what then? A malfunction? A blind spot? Or was the piece removed earlier by someone with legitimate access, then packaged during the chaos? No one has ever been charged for an inside job. And the simplest answer, a sensor glitch, remains plausible. But the doubt is a splinter that never heals. One of the oddest details, the thieves walked past other masterpieces that would have been easier to sell or even more famous to claim. Why skip a giant Titian? Why pick a heavy, awkward finial? It suggests a list, and lists suggest clients someone who wanted certain kinds of art for specific reasons, whether historic interest, display in a private lair, or cold-blooded trade value. The Vermeer alone is a unicorn. Only about 34 Vermeers are generally accepted in the world. Owning one illegally is like owning a lighthouse you dare not light. The Rembrandt Seascape is unique in his catalog. You can't brag about these in public. You can only possess them, which is a different, lonelier verb. Over the years, the art becomes rumor. Rumor becomes myth. Myth becomes funding for scams. The museum and the FBI chase leads across oceans, across bar rooms, across deathbeds. A suspect tells a tale. A widow shares a confession secondhand. A tipster points to a storage locker that yields nothing. The trail loops like a hallway of mirrors. Walk into the Gardner today, and you'll meet a silence that's almost a person. Empty frames hang where the paintings used to be, not as a macabre stunt, but because Isabella Stewart Gardner required that her arrangement stay intact. The museum chooses to honor that and to weaponize it. Those frames are beacons to would-be returners. We kept your place. Bring them home. You can stand in the Dutch room and feel the outline of loss. It's a museum teaching its visitors a new sense. Negative space as a history. We aren't just missing brushstrokes. We're missing time. A Vermeer isn't pigment and canvas. It's an argument about light, a memory of a moment, a lens from the 1660s still capable of surprising you in 2025. Every year they remain gone is a year that future viewers don't get to be changed by them. The Degas drawings, small and delicate, aren't worth the headlines the Rembrandts command, but they are the fingerprints of an eye studying motion. The thieves took not just rare objects. They took a set of questions those objects ask us about seeing, about time, about the ways artists turn breath into line. So how did it work? The heist, on paper, is a mix of social engineering and policy gaps. A convincing uniform, a badge, a hat, a confident posture. Most people don't challenge a uniform at 1:24 a.m. A script that disarms. Telling the guard he resembles someone with a warrant flips the power dynamic. The guard becomes cooperative to clear his own name. Single point failure. One desk, one emergency button. Move the guard from the desk. You unplug the defenses. No cameras inside galleries at the time. Budget, philosophy, or both the eyes weren't where they needed to be. Time, 81 minutes, is an eternity. It suggests they knew response times, knew the building, knew that on this night, with the city drunk on green beer, they could linger. Then there's the after. Art is hard to fence. You can't chop a Vermeer the way you chop a car. Some masterpieces are too famous to sell and too fragile to move often, which raises the nightmare scenario curators whisper about. What if, after the initial post-heist shuffle, some pieces were damaged, rolled too tight, stored damp, cut again for portion sale, or simply destroyed because holding them became riskier than burying them? The museum has to believe otherwise. That's what the empty frames are for, to keep belief alive. Unsolved crimes live at a crossroads. Law, lore, and longing. This one adds loss not of money, but of encounters that never happened. A teenager who would have gasped at the storm in Rembrandt's sea never gets to. A quiet afternoon when a visitor drifting through the Blue Room would have recognized a face in a Manet never happens. Art's power is repeatable revelation. And for 3.5 decades, those revelations have been held hostage. If you strip away the thrills, the Gardner heist is a story about trust. A museum trusted its rules to keep the night small. A guard trusted a uniform. A city trusted its normal. Two men took those trusts and rearranged them like furniture. Maybe the thieves thought they'd return the art later, after a deal. Maybe they thought they were too clever to be caught. Maybe they couldn't see beyond the dollar signs to the thing itself the way a Vermeer makes daylight behave. But the frames remember. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to stand in a room and sense what should be there, go to the Gardner. The emptiness is loud. And if you know something, if anyone knows something, time doesn't erase the possibility of return. Museums, insurers, and law enforcement have offered large rewards over the years. People do come forward. Sometimes the story shifts because a single person decides to change it. What's your theory? Inside help? A client's shopping list? A flawed motion sensor law? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want a deep dive on how investigators track black market art, how a painting becomes a passport, tell me which piece you want to follow. Vermeer's The Concert, the Rembrandt Seascape, or the Trail of the Degas drawings. In the Gardner's Dutch room, empty frames still hang as placeholders for a future the museum refuses to abandon. They're not taunting the thieves. They're calling the art by name. 81 minutes to take them. How long to bring them back?